It's been forever since I've last seen this Terran play. As a matter of fact, I don't even recall the last time that I've watched him play some StarCraft 2, but there's no denying that he is the most successful Korean player that we've ever had. Spotting right here in the upper right, playing in blue. We're looking inside of the main base of Maru. His opponent, down in the bottom left, playing with the red Protoss species, a two-time world champion of StarCraft from the early days. We have SOS. Now, this particular series is part of the GSL Team League. So this is a brand new league that just started up. And this particular best of 5 is using the Winners League format. So it's a team-based best of 5 where the winner of the series, or the winner of the match rather, gets to stay for another game in the series. So if Maru wins this particular game, for example, he will stay for game number 2 as well. If SOS loses this, he is out. Now, of course, that makes you wonder what the teams are. So on Team ON, we actually have a ridiculous team. So ON has a bunch of really good players, but they got one bonus player on top of it too. So there's Maru, there's Shin, and then there's Zoun. Those are phenomenal StarCraft players. But then just to add a fourth member to the crew, they also added Hero. Insane team. I don't really know exactly how they were allowed to get away with this. But apparently it's on-site together with, well, T1. I guess they needed to put Hero in the league as well. And since Hero is on a team that only has one player, they decided to merge them together here. But honestly, it seems like a pretty crazy advantage. Anyways, in the meantime, for Team HWS, it's apparently a Korean word. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. But they have Rogue, SOS, and Cure, which is pretty funny. Because, of course, that does mean that a three-man team was allowed. They just added Hero to Team ON as well for this particular match at the very least. It's going to be a lot of fun though. I really enjoyed the Team League last time around. Because obviously that means we don't just get like a Protoss versus Terran best of 5 here. But we're going to check out some of the other matchups too. And I think it's a really nice way to also force feed you with a bunch of mirror matchups. No, it's a really nice way to see a different type of series develop. Because, of course, it does mean that you really want to send out your, well, best players at the correct time, right? I mean, apparently, at the very least, for Team ON, they decided to send out Maru first. I don't really think we can consider SOS to be the best on the opposite team. That would be, in my mind, a toss-up between Rogue and Cure. Both of those players are ridiculous. Probably Rogue would be my personal pick as the rank 1 player on that team. But anyways, this is going to be a banger. Let's find out. It's been a while since I've seen SOS play as well. SOS, of course, a phenomenal player, but also a very cheesy player. He's not necessarily known for his macro, although obviously he can do it. I mean, he's a two-time world champion for a reason, but let's just say that he won the majority of his tournaments back in the day by being unpredictable. Let's go with the word unpredictable. And right now, of course, at least as far as Protoss goes, well, a lot of strategies are very much so up in the air. Even though the patch has been around for some time now, there's still not really a lot of agreement as to how you're supposed to be playing Protoss, even at the absolute highest level. So let's see. Yeah, we already have a sneaky probe moving out. I think this is a proxy. So there are additional gateways coming in. It looks like we're just opening up with a good old 3-gate proxy here. So this is going to be some early game aggression. Pylon is going to be planted down. Keep in mind, of course, that on this patch, you don't need a gateway or a nexus attached to the pylon to get the speedy warp-ins. Warp-ins are now flat. This is great, though, here from Maru. Ooh, assuming he can actually, there we go, get the final hit on that one adept in. Sniping one of those reinforcing units is absolutely massive. You are going to need some more units here at home as well, so not a bad idea. Cyclone is phenomenal, though. Yeah, the Cyclone is just so freaking hard to beat. He's going to try and target fire down the pylon. Very ambitious little grenade. Maybe he wanted to boop himself down to the low ground. I'm not entirely sure. The Adept is not gonna, or the Reaper rather, is not gonna be able to escape. The Adept, though, will have a difficult time catching up with the Cyclone. He will go through the slow zone for just a little bit. But let's see. This is where SOS is gonna switch on the aggression. And we're effectively going into an Adept all-in. Now, Adepts, usually not ideal, but against Widow Mines, you can just shade by them. Not a bad spot here whatsoever, actually, for the South Korean Protoss player. Breaking open the main base is going to be difficult. Keep in mind, of course, that this is really only a commitment of a pylon, right? Like, it's really not the end of the world. He didn't get Blink. Ooh, he is going to be able to get rid of that Cyclone, I think, at least if, well, the Medevac is not going to snatch it. Siege tank here, beautifully positioned as well, though. For now, I think the best thing you can do as SOS is just control the low ground and really just try to deny mining for as long as you reasonably can. Eventually, I think that Cyclone is going to be able to fish most of these units. Yeah. So maybe you do want to disappear at some point, but while Terran here is pretty much unable to secure that natural expansion, we already have a third Nexus coming up for SOS. This is why we love SOS, man. SOS is probably, I want to say, like, maybe like the 10% favorite in this particular game. Maru has just always been such a beast, but you can never count SOS out. SOS is very much so the type of player that can beat anybody, but he's rarely the favorite going up against any of the top contenders. But he's perfectly capable of, well, going for some strategy that will catch players off guard because they just simply have never seen it before. All right, Banshee going in, and this could be big because at this point, there's just nothing that can actually shoot up. There's a sentry, I suppose. It can do a little bit of tickling. We did have a bit of aggression here, too. Stalkers get warped in, and they will try their absolute best. Luckily, right here, though, for SOS, Maru never committed to the cloaking upgrade. This is one of the things, actually, that you will see very frequently against SOS. Players know that he's going to do something aggressive, so they don't really commit to a lot of aggression of their own, which is then what allows SOS to pull ahead. It's a very curious, yeah, almost like a disconnect, right? Like you try to be super safe, you just want to spend as much money on units as you possibly can, and then you end up not really being able to deal that much damage yourself. Let's see if the Widowmine drop can achieve something. This Widowmine's not very useful against Adepts. Nah. Good pull. And while I do believe eventually, yeah, all these units are gonna get cleaned up. A little bit of lost mining time, I suppose, is the most that Maru can really hope for. SOS continues scouting. Okay. So, not a bad setup here for Maru across the board. This is really what he's been aiming for, right? Like, I think most players go into a game against SOS with the mindset of just wanting to stay alive. Just survive until the later stages of the game, and you'll probably be okay. Now, I don't mean that with any disrespect. SOS obviously still a very high-ranking Grandmaster player, but the truth of the matter is that he wins the majority of his games early on, right? So, we'll have to see exactly if Maru can, yeah, leverage his way into a better mid-game now. It's still difficult, though. Like, in general, I feel like in Protoss versus Terran, this is really the phase in the matchup where Protoss is really scary. Terran's gonna have a good timing attack with Stimpack combat shields and then +1 attack. But post that, after that attack is done, it's quite difficult for Terran to really go out onto the map. Medevac drops become a lot more risky, and usually Protoss can take the entire map if they want to. Now, this is kind of disjointed. I don't think SOS really wants to fight. That being said, he does have charge done. He's thinking about, yeah, engaging these units before Stimpack, Combat Shields, and +1 are done. But that ship has now sailed. Oh my god, you don't want to fight right now, SOS. You don't want to fight right now. Couple SCVs. Oh, a lot of SCVs get pulled here as well in game number 1 of this best of 5. Maru ready to send it. Beautiful anti-armor missile as well. Getting so much value. That anti-armor missile is going to force the disengage. Immortal unable to really run away through that slow zone. Not a lot of energy remaining either on the sentry, and now the sentry is gone. There's maybe one more force field, but no, that one also will not land. And while maybe post this attack, Protoss feels pretty good most of the time, you do have to survive this engagement. Maru hits Protoss here with an absolute sledgehammer of an attack. Liberator joining in as well. Okay, well, this is the Maru we all know and love. GG. Okay, so that is gonna give Team Onsite the 1-0 advantage. Next up, we have Rogue. Maru versus Rogue. This is a banger of a matchup. Not sure what to expect between these two, but this is the type of game that just on its own is already a headliner, right? Just to have all of these high-profile games, one after another, is amazing. Now, this is a best of 5, and like I said, Onsite has 4 players on their team. We have team, what are they called again? HWS. They have 3 players on their team, so that's Rogue, SOS, and Cure. I don't really know exactly what the rules are for when you run out of players, right? Obviously, if you get the 3-0 win, it doesn't really matter so much, but yeah, I'm assuming that post the 3 players or 4 players, depending on the setup, I'm assuming you can just pick and choose for the next one to come out again, so you'll probably have repeats on the same team. That's really the only thing that makes sense. There's actually quite a few hype teams as well. I know that Team Basilisk is participating in this. I know that Clem is also playing under one of the teams, even though I don't think Liquid is technically part of this this particular team league. Anyways, if you guys are interested, well, actually, even if you're not interested, I'm going to cast more of the games. Yeah, I'm not going to guilt trip people into hitting the like button down below, just because, you know, otherwise I won't be uploading another video or something. You can hit the like button down below, but I think I'm going to cast more games of this team league, regardless on whether or not you do, just because I love StarCraft, okay? But I would appreciate it if you hit the like button. That would be nice. All right, it's going to be a hatch into a gas, into a pool right here for our Zerg. In the meantime, barracks into command center. I would imagine Reaper indeed added into the mix. Orbital command coming up. And now we're going to have to idle for a bit. This is one of the weird things about the latest patch. Yeah, nothing really lines up as nicely as it used to. There's actually been a lot of push in the StarCraft community, for myself as well, for what it's worth. I agree with everybody else. To revert 5.0.16. In case you're unfamiliar, effectively none of the professional gamers, I've asked like 10, none of them like the patch. So even though there's some cool parts about it, especially the thing that a lot of people are thrown off with is the early game. And the main complaint is that the 8-worker start has not achieved at all what it set out to do. So there's not more build order variety. As a matter of fact, there seems to be less. For example, cannon rushes are far easier to hold for Zerg. We also have far less early barracks of proxies on the other side of the map. So the general consensus is revert 5.0.16 and then, well, bring back maybe some of the changes with 5.0.17, but a lot of the players at this point don't really like playing the game as much as they did before. And I think ultimately, the pro gamers are the ones to listen to. They will know exactly, yeah, what is going to be the most fun way to play the game, right? Like they play a ton of StarCraft. They're the ones that play this game for a living. And basically all of them agree, with the exception of like one, I believe, all of them agree that this patch is for the worse. And a lot of them actually have not been practicing nearly as much. If you look at the European ladder, for example, as of me casting this, in the past, there were always a bunch of top players online. Right now, even at like prime time in the evenings, there's like 2. There's just not nearly as many people laddering. And it's a little bit unfortunate. Obviously, you can still get your practice in through custom games and all the rest of it. But the players, at least the high-ranking ones, really are not enjoying the new patch very much. So I think reverting it and maybe taking some of the interesting changes, like for example the Colossus one, and maybe you can even mess around with the Warp Gate changes a bunch, I think would be a very realistic thing to aim for. It's so funny, right? Because like originally I think the 8-worker start especially was considered to be pretty experimental, and then it just kind of stuck around. And then they changed a lot of other stuff that then mitigated all of the early game variety that the patch was supposed to introduce. Yeah, I don't really like it. Not ideal. All right, anyways, Hellions into Banshees. I mean, it was fun. Okay, then I'll shut up about it, okay? I think 5.0.16 was really fun when Blizzard was updating it every week. But then the last thing they changed was make the Ghost 1 supply cheaper and make the Command Center 100 minerals cheaper, which is like the craziest band-aid solution ever. I mean, it fixed some of the problems, but it introduced a whole bunch of other ones. Not very smart. I don't think they fundamentally wanted to touch that, but anyways, it was okay if they were then gonna update the game again a week later, but now it's been quite a while. We haven't heard anything from Blizzard. Yeah, it's a little bit unlucky. Anyhow, lucky for us though, there's still a lot of tournaments ongoing, and this has really pushed, for example, the patches mod to be a lot more popular. That's actually what a lot of players have been practicing lately. So it's pretty interesting actually. Like currently in StarCraft 2, a lot of the players are hating playing the 5.0.16 patch, but they're loving playing these custom patches that players have cooked up themselves. So it's an interesting time to be a StarCraft fan, to say the least. I find this, I've never experienced this before in like the decade and a half that I have been following this game closely. Anyways, Hellion Banshee coming in. Maru testing the waters. Does get 3 drones over here, but ultimately not ideal. Banshee also shows up a bit late. It decided to cloak super early, but Rogue has already seen the shimmer. Yeah, he doesn't have detection at the moment, but the Spore Crawler is just seconds away from being done. 5 drones in total. Yeah, 5 drones in total for 4 Hellions. Not really a net benefit. You do aim for a little bit more. Do want to keep the Banshee alive, though. Keeping the Banshee alive is super important. There is a second Banshee, but that one's showing up quite late. Okay, we'll kill a Queen. That's something. Denying this 4th base would be pretty sick, but I think the Overseer is going to be done here. Yep. And it will show up. Okay, nice. That's actually really good for Maru. Denying that base, even just slowing it down, is big. It may very well have forced out this decision right now for Rogue. Rogue going into a straight Spire. Okay. But yeah, one of the big complaints is that the early game is just not nearly as satisfactory to play. So the big difference is that in the past, there used to be a team of people working on StarCraft 2, and they basically refined the early game to a point where it felt really good to play. By simply reducing the starter work account and changing the amount of supply that Nexi and Orbitals and Hatcheries and whatnot provide, the entire early game feels less clean. I don't really have a better way to describe it, but you have to cut a lot of worker production in order to optimize a build. Whereas in the past, I mean, it's not really a strategic choice. In the past, you could keep producing things and it just felt like you were more in a, like, you were like on a roll, right? You were like having this momentum build up right from the very start. Whereas right now, it just doesn't feel nearly as good. This right here feels amazing, though, for Rogue, but absolutely horrid for Maru. Maru going for an attack and losing a siege tank like that is a big deal. He's gonna stem forward regardless. He wants to kill this base again. Maybe he still has the units available, though, because Rogue was going into a Spire. Yeah, no siege tank, no problem, apparently. The Spire is a little bit slower, right, than all of the alternate choices. It meant that, indeed, the Spire got prioritized and Baneling speed did not. There is a new 4th hatchery in the bottom left. Maru doesn't know of it, but he expects it. He's going to check with the Cloaked Banshees, and getting this kill as well would be... Well, I mean, I don't want to say game ending, but denying this base would be absolutely incredible for Terran. Denying the Zork's 4th base 3 times over? It's going to be close, though. Overseer is here. You guys aren't really going to be able to escape. Nah, I don't think he's going to get it. Nope. That hatchery is going to live. Okay. Zerglings trying to turn themselves into Banelings. There is a 3rd command center now landing. Oh. Pesky Baneling over here as well. Accidentally morphed in the middle of nowhere. Okay, Mutaling Bane versus Marine Medevac Tank. Let's see. Some leftover Hellions are nice. Siege Tank, though, absolutely gutted. And while the Medevacs are going to try and snatch as many of these units away from a certain death, that was not the fight that Maru was hoping for at all. This game went really quite well up until this point. This engagement was an overextension and a half. Fighting Zerg on creep after already losing a bunch of your really important units. Now also losing out on your Medevacs is a really big deal. Rogue has been on a roll lately, right? Maybe some players haven't been practicing as much, but Rogue is not one of them. Rogue is smelling blood in the water right now. He wants to try and break open the Terran's natural. The Banelings will exactly get that job done. Is there enough for Zerg to just overwhelm Terran at this stage? He doesn't even really need to, but he thinks that he's got enough to send it right here, right now. Reinforcing links are indeed streaming across. Rogue gets a point on the board for his team. Okay, that will take us to Fear and Faith. Spawning right here in the upper right, we have Rogue's next opponent. We're looking inside of the main base of Hero. A good old Protoss versus Zerg. Hero has actually been very vocal about not liking this patch whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, he's been recently playing both Zerg against Zerg, as well as random in a lot of the weekly cups. Now, as you may have already expected, it's not been going nearly as well as you would like it to. But Rogue is one of the players who's just been destroying Hero in, I don't know, like the last... I think the last 2 months? I've seen quite a few Rogue versus Hero games, and I don't recall Hero winning a single time lately. Hero seems to be particularly fed up with the patch. Now, I can't really blame him all too much. He's basically gone from winning everything in 2026 to winning very little, right? And you may have already noticed that Hero is not really signing up for as many tournaments lately either. Now, obviously, this is a GSL, so I can't really blame the man too much. But yeah, this is certainly one of the players, apparently, who's not been liking it all too much. And even though he did not go for Zerg or Terran in this matchup, I mean, do you really want to face off against Rogue in a Zerg versus Zerg? I don't think so. He still has decided to go with his good old faithful Protoss, but you do have to know that apparently Hero does believe that this matchup is incredibly lopsided right now. Okay, he will scout his opponent second, so at least that's something. No early aggression though here from Rogue. That's all he's really looking for at this point. He's gonna go straight back home. Past Jimmy in the middle of the map. Can't blame him all too much. It's a beautiful statue. And you know what? There's more statues right over here. A golden Minsk. Okay. So, yeah, where exactly has Rogue been winning so many of the games? Well, I think the problem that Hero is running into is that it's very difficult right now for him to play a straight-up macro game. Obviously, he's known for all of the shenanigans, right? So, the gateway styles, the void ray styles, the quick carriers, the two-base all-ins, and all the rest of it. But Hero is a player with a very wide range. And I think where he feels where the matchup is just so much more difficult right now is that Zerg is just more powerful the longer that the game goes on. So you end up in a situation where you kind of feel like you have to do or die early on. And while that is something Hero does, being limited to that is really quite tricky, right? You effectively have to try and catch the Zerg player off guard right now because Rogue is going to be able to run away with the map if you're not careful. Now, obviously, the margins are very small, but they are impactful at the highest level, right? It's not really going to matter too much if you're a ladder hero. But if you are competing at this level, things such as the larva regen rate on hatcheries 100% throws a lot of things off. Even just a 4-player map, to be honest. Like, a 4-player map does already throw Protoss off quite a bit. Even though I like the return of it, I think it's really quite fun. A lot of players don't really enjoy it very much because you can just end up in a situation where it's a build order loss, right? If you accidentally scout in the wrong direction and your opponent happens to be going for an early cheese, you just lose the game, not because your opponent played better, but because you couldn't possibly know. You're at the mercy of RNG. Now, this is quite nice. There's no link speed done yet. Hero taking a big risk, though. Losing the Stalker would be quite a problem. He does have recall available, so I wonder if that's going to be the plan. I don't think so. He doesn't really want to recall these units because you'd rather save a little bit of that energy, get a chrono boost done. Normally, you'd go for adepts early on, right? Getting the adepts out really does make, well, defending all of this early game stuff a little bit easier. A lot of Zerglings coming up, actually, for Rogue. Rogue, thinking that since there's no adepts, there may also not be any sort of oracles out. And while we have a Stargate here completing the wall off eventually, this third Nexus is in a world of trouble. Honestly, I don't even think you need to fight the units here as Rogue. Not until the Oracle is out is this third Nexus safe. And I think Rogue could just right-click the Nexus and force the kill. Am I wrong? Okay, he's gonna go after the units. Yeah. Shield battery first. Units next. Oracle is gonna come. Zerg does not yet know. Yeah, he's gonna check right now. He will see that the Oracle is indeed gonna be available. Do you just go after the Nexus still? Wait a second. Do you kill all the units and the Nexus? Oh, no. Ugh. This is a disaster for the Protoss. Now, keep in mind that Rogue is doing this off of a very low economy. So, only 32 probes. Zerg probes, that is. Doesn't have any workers at the third Nexus other than these 3 probes. Nexus. It's a big deal for Zerg to commit this much in the early game, but I guess it's now allowing Hero to not really keep these oracles out into the map all too much. He's got a third one coming, so he's thinking about sending them out, but this is kind of risky. He must recognize that Zerg is committing pretty heavily here. Oh, we're going straight Fleet Beacon? What? I'm a little afraid that this Nexus is gonna die a second time around, man. Yeah, Rogue decides to just target down everything. Oracles are gonna come back home. I think that's a misplay, honestly, from Protoss, though. He knew that there were a lot of Zerglings out. So that does mean that Zork did not make a lot of drones. So therefore, yeah, sending out the Oracles is not really that useful. Overlord Scout also perfectly sees exactly what the follow-up is going to be. Rogue is now going to be able to prepare from, well, a very long distance away. Because this is either going to be Carriers, Tempest, or a Mothership. And in every instance, it's going to take forever for Protoss to get all of that going. So for the most part, yeah, we're droning up right now. It's been later drones than you normally expect from the Zerg. But he's going to be able to power out 3 bases and potentially 4 bases really quickly. Mama will be his weapon of choice. 400 minerals, 400 gas. Hero worker-wise, though, is still okay. Yeah, not the end of the world right here, worker-wise. I'm mostly curious to see what sort of unit composition Rogue wants to go for. He's only just now going for a lair, which is pretty wild, right? I mean, this Mama ship is gonna hit before the lair is done? Well, nah, not quite. Takes a long time to produce that unit, but it's still going to be quite difficult for Rogue to get the correct units out. 4 Oracles trying their absolute best. Will they be able to snipe this base? Looks like they will. Yep, nicely done. Hatchery will indeed start back up, but this is a little bit of lost momentum right here for Rogue. I'm assuming we're gonna go Hydra then. Roach Warren, Hydra then, +1/+1. Sound like that would make sense. We do need some form of anti-air. Could go Roaches into Spire, yeah. Roach Corruptor, obviously also a good choice. Okay, so that means that until the Spire is done, Mama is gonna have free reign of the battlefield. And she's out. Nice little bit of Oracle micro. Honestly, Mama herself could actually put in quite a bit of work. Charge slots are quite nice. Mothership actually does deal significant amounts of damage these days. Yeah, there she goes. Oh, there she goes. Watch out for she'll burn you up. With lasers. Mama, this is risky, though. Problem is that Hero does not know about the timing of the Spire, right? So, there could already be Corruptors. So far, Mama has bruised a lot of units, but she's not really killing anything. There's the Queen army coming in. Spire is finished here in, yeah, a couple seconds. Corruptors can be coming out, and, yeah, well, Mama killed 1 Overlord. She bruised a lot of units, but she hasn't really killed much. There we go. Oracle's going back around the left side of the map yet again. Not enough over here, though. Spore Crawler is going to be done. A lot of queens available. And now Mutas coming in through. Mutalisks? Huh. I assumed it was going to be Corruptors pretty much every single time. You've seen the Fleet Beacon. You've seen the Mothership. You can definitely go Roach Ravager Corruptor here, but instead we're going Roach Ling Muta. Technically, Mutas are, of course, not a terrible choice. They can still be really great against Oracles, for example, but usually they're not like a main damage dealer for the Zerg. Then again, Protoss does not really expect this either, right? Oh, there's like nothing in the natural expansion and in the main base to deal with the Mutas. I think he may have seen him. He's gonna go after the High Templar. He's gonna shut down the High Templar. Cloak gets activated. Ooh, hoo, hoo. Mama coming in clutch. Man. Yeah, losing the High Templar is painful. Losing the Probes, even more painful. This may very well force Hero into an all-in. He has a scary army, though. And obviously, there's not a lot of anti-air. He's making even more Mutas. I'm a little bit surprised by the Muta situation, but I guess he's forcing the fight on creep. And that's where a lot of queens are also present. Stalkers are being killed right now by the unit they're supposed to counter. How many High Templar remain? Just 2. Just 2. Fifth hatchery coming up over on the left side of the map. Mama trying to chase down these very fast-moving units. There's 1 Phoenix trying to do the same. Oh, miscontrol. That'll be the end of the Oracles. What about the Nexus over here up north? That one will stay alive for a little bit longer. Actually, the Oracles were left alone. Apparently, the Mutas decided to go back for the mineral line instead. 2 of them remain right now. Yeah, and this is going pretty badly right now for Hero, right? Like, it's not an unplayable position, but it's just such an uphill battle from here. He's trying his best to really get some value out of his units. But Rogue appears to have an answer for everything so far. And while the answer may be a little bit unorthodox, it is efficient. He's trying to force out a big transition here towards these Phoenixes and Oracles as well. And obviously you can, well, just go Roaches against that and even switch into Corruptors if you really need to. Do we target down the Mothership? Nah, I think that's just the bounces. I think that's just the bounces connecting. 42 additional probes end up falling. Okay. Yeah, I think we're now entering the territory where Hero's final play is one attack with all of the units that he's got. The problem is he knows that there's going to be a fight on creep in that instance, and then obviously you have so many, well, queens and possibly like other units that are hidden underground, for example, with Burrow, or a bunch of Banelings that get a movement speed boost as well. It's going to be extremely tricky, but when you lose 46 probes against Mutalisks, I don't really think you have much of a choice. Rogue is not likely to commit to a base race, because I think he's just going to fight this Protoss army straight up. Here's the Zergling distraction as well, dude. Mutas going into the natural domain, the 3rd. Zerglings then manage to get into the 4th. This game is painful for Hero. Knowing he goes into this matchup with already a little bit of salt in his veins. Not only because of the patch, not only because of Protoss versus Zerg, but also because he has just been absolutely getting destroyed by Rogue. And then Rogue pulls a game out of his pocket again. That's just disgusting here, man. Like, this is a very painful one, I think, for Hero. He's gonna have to apparently defend at home. This army was waiting for him on creep, but at this point, Rogue no longer cares. He is sending the all-in to the army that was supposed to go to the other side of the map. All the probes will end up dying. Rogue gets a 2nd point on the board for the team. Okay, so Rogue has gotten rid of a Terran player. He's gotten rid of a Protoss player. Maybe he can score a hat trick? Can we call this a hat trick in StarCraft 2? I don't know. We need a term for it. Spotting right here in the bottom right-hand corner. We have a Rogue's next victim. We have Shin. Both of these players, of course, absolutely phenomenal. There's been a lot of history between these two as well. Man, remember Rogue playing that insane series against Serral in the RSL, what is this? The RSL upper bracket finals. That was just about maybe a week and a half or so ago. I did upload a separate video of that particular series. Just incredible, ZVZ. Some of the very best StarCraft I have ever seen. I know the mirror matchups are never the most popular, but I highly recommend you go check out that match. It was just phenomenal. But yeah, Rogue is a beast. I think Rogue is probably my favorite Zerg player right now. This man is on another level. What I really like about Rogue is that he just does whatever he thinks is the correct move at any given moment. He's not nearly as... what is the correct word to use? Like, he's not nearly as calculated, I suppose, as Serral. Serral is definitely, as far as just raw performance goes, the better player. But Rogue is at like 99%. He's extremely close, and he's a lot more crazy. He's a lot more loco, as a lot of people would say. Nah, but this guy is nuts. Going Mutas, for example, in that previous game is just like a small thing, I suppose. It was an unnecessary thing. The correct play, and the one that Serral would have probably gone for, was to go Roach Hydra into, for example, Lurkers. Or Roach Corruptor, right? Like, that would have been the quote-unquote correct move. What Rogue ended up going for was Mutas. And he was ready to rub a little bit more salt in already a very wounded hero. And that's going to be effective as well for the future in mind, right? Because now, well, that's something that Hero will remember. That's something that Hero is going to, at the very least, have written down in his memory. That's going to go to his permanent storage. And he will at the very least keep it in mind for their future encounters too. And I really like that. I really like what Rogue in general has been doing over the course of his career, but he seems to just be on another high once again. It's always the question, whenever Korean pros go to the military, when they return, will they be able to climb to their previous level? I think Rogue is already there. I mean, it's been quite a while now since he returned. Actually, when was that? Can I figure this out? Rogue Liquipedia. I think it is something that's... yeah, 2024. So March of 2024 is when he fulfilled his military service. So it's been a little bit already. But still, right? Like, it's taken... like 2 years, I think, right? Since he really has managed to climb back to that level. It's kind of nuts. StarCraft 2 is brutal like that. You don't play for like a year and a half, bang. You're back to square one. All right. Very quick lair right here for Shin. No third hatch for either player just yet. Match point obviously here as well for Rogue. Let's see what he can do. If he wins this game, I guess Cure doesn't even need to come out. Yeah. Cure can sit on the bench. I would imagine Shin is going to go into a quick Spire. It's really the only thing that makes sense. Saturating the gas over here right now too. What is confusing me a little bit though is that he's decided to go for the lair in the natural. This is very easy to scout. Now we are on Rorschach, which is a map with a very close air-to-air spawn, right? So you can fly a Ling, or a Ling, you can fly an Overlord in. Zorkling doesn't get too far, but you can fly an Overlord in. Furthermore, Shin also shows to his opponent here that there is no Link speed. So, likewise here, Rogue has decided to skip Link speed. Both players are playing pretty greedy. I mean, Metabolic Boost is finishing right now, but this is by no means the fastest possible one. Do we really get any value out of any of these units? Okay, he's now making a big batch of Links, but already a Spire is coming up for Shin. I find like showing your opponent the Links a little bit, like the Links without speed, a little bit risky, generally speaking. I don't think you really want to commit to that too much. Getting the scout off is quite nice, but it's also giving your opponent a big tell. All right, he's gonna test the waters. Third hatchery now coming up here for Rogue. Lair is gonna be done in about a half minute. Spire already nearly finished. The queens are gonna have to hold. He's checking right now for potential third bases. None of that is down. Overlord here will get sniped. Quite painful, honestly. Overlords are so slow nowadays that it does take a while for those units to back up, and queens can catch up with them a little bit easier. There's the Spire, and there's the Mutas. 7 of them coming all at the same time. We will have Link speed on the back of this as well for Shin. Cheeky changeling. Running around. Hello. Brenda, you're too thick. Ah. Brenda thought she was being polite, but then decided better of it. Yeah. Alright, now the Mutas get spotted for the first time. Oh, Misrally drones here. That's a little bit messy. Yeah, not ideal. +1 flyer attacks coming up for Shin, who is now going to be able to grab full map control. This is one of the difficult things about this matchup. When your opponent has that air superiority, it's really quite difficult to move around. Because not only do you obviously, well, need to get anti-air yourself, you also lose all map vision. So units on the watchtowers, units in the air, nothing really should be able to go out onto the map anymore as long as Shin holds the Muta. So Rogue is now forced into a much more defensive position. Not exactly sure what his follow-up is going to be, as he's going for a second Evo chamber together with an infestation pit. So maybe he wants to go really quick Hive. He could aim for a really quick follow-up as well with, for example, fungal growth. But yeah, infestors alone are not really gonna cut it. In the meantime, we do, by the way, have a very interesting combination of upgrades. So we have +1 missile, carapace, and +1 flyer attacks. This is a big indication that Shin wants to make a swap to roaches, but obviously he's also getting a +1 flyer upgrade, which is a little bit disjointed. Rogue's still getting some value out of the massive batch of links that he produced earlier on. He's got actually some more Zerglings coming in. I quite like those. See if he can maybe take some of those weakened drones yet again. Yeah, that will be another pretty significant number of those units dying. And while the Mutas will clean all of this up again eventually, it's quite costly. Okay, 9 drones. Not bad. So this is straight Hive. Straight Hive with 3 Infestors. Weirdly enough, it's the player who's not playing Mutas who's going +1 melee here. So I guess Rogue is rushing Ultras. This is Ultras with, I think, Microbial Shroud or something. Has to be. So what's the plan when it comes to killing the Mutas? Vipers, I guess? It's all very gas heavy, though. Rogue is only on just 3 bases. He hasn't even saturated this 6th gas yet, which is quite a big deal, actually. If he wants to do any sort of aggression right now on the back of all of this, it's gonna hit pretty hard. Weirdly enough, 2-2 gets fired up here as well for Shin, so both players are playing something pretty funky here. 2-2 gets fired up. This is the only group of units that really benefit from that upgrade so far. At this point, I think Rogue will likely have clicked on one of those blue roaches as well and has figured out what he is playing against. Seeing a missile research there is a little bit odd. Ultras are indeed going to be coming up. We have Adrenal Glands also on the production tab now. These are some very, very strange unit compositions for the both of them. I guess if you have like full armor on Ultralisks, Mutas don't really deal any damage. Right, they're going to be reduced to the absolute minimum amount. But that does mean, of course, that the attack that Rogue is likely going to be cooking up will have to effectively, like, win the game. This almost looks like an Ultralisk timing attack. I think they are going to absolutely tear roaches apart, assuming they will be able to get the chitinous plating research done. So that is the big pivotal upgrade in this game. But I'm not sure exactly this is the upgrade right over here. If he gets that one done, I think Ultras are going to reign supreme on the ground. Mutas, though, are still really scary now. Fungal. He doesn't want to lose him. He's a little bit afraid of losing the Infestors. At this point, Shin, of course, sees the Hive. Okay, do we Fungal? Oh, we Microbial Shroud for the Queens instead? Curious. Here's the roaches, though, and this is the perfect moment, I think, for Shin to strike, because it's right before all of those big upgrades here of Rogue kick in. So he held all of the cards as far as the map control goes, and he's making the big switch on over towards this Roach Ravager push. Is there enough for Rogue to clean this up? He's got a lot of energy on Queens, so we may have, like, 1 Immortal Ultralisk. Fungal Growths over here are pretty good to keep this army pinned back. Look at the Queens here. They're stuck in that section of the map, but perfect for transfusions. Here we go. The Immortal Ultralisk. We have Microbial Shrouds and transfusions for you, man. That's the only reason that the Queens are out. Look at them transfusing all of this. Keep him alive, Brenda. Keep him alive. No. Oh, okay, he backed up again. He backed up again. By the way, can the Queens leave? I think they can. Hatchery is gone, though. Shin now sees the amount of units that are out. He's a little bit concerned. Yo, are you guys, like... Is this like a weird traffic jam? Is this like a traffic lock right over here? I think that's 4 Queens that are stuck. What? Brenda! Oh my god! She can fly! It's like back like the Brood War days. Ultra, though, does die. What in the world just happened? We've seen that with a Reaper in a previous game. Is there enough, though, for Shin to break through this? I do believe there is enough right here for Shin to break through this. What a funky game. What a very strange game. Brenda was elevated up in the air. GG. Interestingly enough, for the final game of the day, we get the return of Maru. We also have the final player that we did not yet see. We're looking inside of the main base of Cure. A Terran versus Terran to close it all out. I thought we were doing the Winners League. You know, the format where the winner of the game is allowed to stay on. But maybe it's because It's a bit confusing when you don't have 5 players on a team, right? I think they probably mixed and matched a bunch of the rules together to make sure that it works with smaller teams as well. That is the, yeah, simple truth in StarCraft these days. There's not a lot of teams that will have, well, for a best of 5 players available. That's just not really, at least at this level, it's just not really something we have. Obviously, there's smaller teams out there. Anybody can join one if you want to, but... yeah. Alright, anyways. That means we do get another look, though, at a mirror matchup. A good old Terran versus Terran for all the marbles. Maru has historically been a TVT monster. This is a matchup where... basically, it's kind of interesting, right? So, in Korea, on the Asian server, there were always a lot of Terrans playing at the highest level. In Europe, there were always a lot of Zergs. And then in North America, there were always a bunch of Protoss players that were competing at the absolute upper echelons. So it's quite interesting to me that we have this, yeah, these 3 different races competing in the 3 different servers of StarCraft. But in order to be successful in Korea, at least historically, you had to be able to beat a lot of Terrans up. And Maru obviously has won more tournaments than any other Korean out there. And obviously that means you had to beat up a lot of Terrans. So this is always a matchup where he's been very strong. Kyoto, by no means a weak player here whatsoever. Now this is a matchup as well where the command center change has become extremely impactful. Keep in mind that you can now buy another command center for the cost of 6 Marines. Right? Like, let that sink in. Do you want to have, like, imagine you are 15 minutes deep into a Terran versus Terran. Would you rather have A, a command center, or B, 6 Marines? Most players do choose the extra command center, because siege tank lines make it very difficult to get across the map anyways. There's a lot of nice defensive advantages for being Terran, so there have been some pretty wild TVTs lately, where the main objective is to turtle up. You see there's a lot of Terran versus Orc, of course. Those games that do cast quite frequently. There's a lot of ZVZs, or ZVTs rather, where Terrans will make 20, 25, 30 or so command centers. But Terran versus Terran, I mean, if you have 2 Terrans, you might go up to like 40, 50, maybe even 60 if the game goes on really long. But yeah, that would be a crazy game. We'll have to find out whether or not that's even really possible. But there are, my point is, right, 60 would be a little extreme. My point is that there are a lot of players that do favor getting more command centers right now because it feels safer. And obviously, if you can just disable the fog of war through scans, it does, well, give your positioning quite nicely away to the opponent, right? If you can just continuously scan all over the map, the fog of war is no longer an advantage. Let's see. We're gonna dance. High ground advantage for Cure. Not much you can really do. In StarCraft 2, there's no such thing as units missing towards the high ground or something along those lines, which I know many other RTS games out there do have an advantage for. But getting the vision lead there is the big thing. So Cure having more vision on his units for a little bit meant that he got the first shot off. Maru will have to back off. He's still going to test the waters, though. Maru always aggressive, right? Maru is really the only player at this level that continuously loves sending SCV trains to the other side of the map. It's a bit weird, though. Both players trying to outsmart one another. Now there's nothing remaining anymore. Wait a second. You do still have to survive the early game, by the way. I just brought up the potential for mass command center, but it does include, surviving the early game, and this game has just gotten very strange. Both players just sailed by each other in the middle of the map, and now they're both committing to aggression. Obviously, there's no recall available, right? You don't get to produce out of larva here. Being able to sit on your opponent's production is a massive lead. Where does the siege tank go? It's gonna try and slither away. At the very least, it's something. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, Cure is already dancing as well with his units. SCVs are dying left, right, and center. Cure is absolutely destroying the economy right here of Maru. But likewise, we have a Embraced siege tank in the corner of Cure's main. I think there's a lot of units that will likely fall. We have another siege tank getting a snipe. He will be able to kill, well, the final tanks apparently kill each other here. Bunch of Marines still available for Cure. Will he have enough to take down Maru? 2 workers remain here for Maru. One really nice thing, though, that Maru has that Cure doesn't is a second orbital command. Yeah, and this tank in blue for Maru is gonna get taken care of. Cure is still on a timer. Even though he's got 10 more workers than the opponent, he knows that there's a second orbital out, and orbital commands are crazy effective. Maru with 3 workers, he can pretend like this is a game of StarCraft Brood War now, I suppose, where you start off with just 4. This is a game of Age of Empires 2, where you start off with 3 workers. Ah, now we have 4. Okay, we've moved on to Brood War. Anyways, it's still scary, though, because Cure needs to send this, and he's got very few HP here on the medevac. Do we go? Do we go? This is risky. There's still a tank in blue. Is there enough available right now for Maru to still defend at home? The tank in blue will indeed get a tank kill as well. Liberator, Cyclone joins in. Forces the siege tank to siege up. Command center is going to go into the main base. This Cyclone, man, he needs to put in the work. He sees the tank on siege. Wants to go down to the low ground to fish. Does not quite get a freebie. Ooh, Maru with a Banshee. Maru sent a Banshee to the other side of the map. Maru with 3 workers may be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat here. The tanks are, yeah, this army can't really do anything. Breaking open the high ground is nearly impossible. The Marines at this point are gone. Viking is out. Worker count is now in favor of Maru yet again. He was reduced to just 3. And at this point, he's got 2 command centers and more workers than the opponent. Oh my god, this is very, very frustrating for Cure. Yeah, this may be the TVT where we built the fewest amount of command centers. Fun fact. 2 Terrans in the game, no command centers. That's like me casting a viewer-submitted game of 2 Gold League Protoss players and both players not committing to a cannon rush. That's crazy, man. Super rare. We are witnessing a beautiful event. I don't know if it's naturally occurring, though. Yeah, I mean, you can no longer go up to the high ground. This army needs to go home. But the problem is, now you're fighting against 2 command centers. Maru doing Maru things. This army needs to continue pushing, but how? How do you make another one of these, pushes into the main base? You can't. Cure likewise can also not really afford a command center at home. So Maru is just going to be able to outgrow Cure here over the next few minutes. This is insanely frustrating for Cure, but I just don't see a way out of this. Maru's going to keep pulling ahead. He's going to keep having the advantage. Obviously, main bases now last significantly longer as well. Now it's 2 tanks versus 1. Jimmy decided to go and face check. Cyclone here still ready to, take a Viking down as well. That's now 4 Vikings available. So that's 1 more than the 3 that Cure has. I think Maru has just worked his magic once again. Maru. The decision making. When I always have a tendency to doubt it for just a moment, right? But then you see the outcome and you realize that once more, he's figured out how to do it. There is apparently a expansion now being made. Maru sees the SCV, I believe. Just barely not. Anyhow, even if he does get the command center up, Maru's gonna be so far ahead. I think Maru's main concern right now, though, is just securing his natural expansion again. He wants to have, indeed, some of those SCVs go to the mineral line down below. Now that he's got the air superiority, he's got more Vikings, he can go into a Liberator. And the Liberators are going to force the unsiege here for Cure. It's still going to be a little bit scary for Maru to go down to the other side of the map. But I think he will. Right, obviously you may run into a situation where now the opponent has the exact same advantage that you have been enjoying here on your side of the map for a while. But I think Maru has the option now to brute force it. There's the Liberator. Liberating the natural expansion. risky, risky, risky. Oh, man. Cure does not. Like, that's so frustrating, too. Cure does not manage to get that siege tank out of the opponent's natural. Now Maru will secure the low ground, too. There's a couple different options. Either you wait. Oh, he scans again. Yeah, either you wait and you check whether or not you want to get, like, for example, Stimpak, combat shields, and +1 infantry attacks, right? And you could wait for all of that. It's an option, or you just send it. And I think you just want to send it. Wait a second, did the second siege tank just also die? How is that possible? Oh, he sieged up. He sieged up on the low ground. I missed that engagement looking around the map. But that is... yeah, that's probably the nail in the coffin. I don't really know why Cure decided to sit out there, but I guess he needed to do something. GG is gonna get called after those losses. And that means that the Wait, what's their name again? That means that Team Onsite, together with Hero, will obtain the victory. Banger of a game to close it out. Really beautiful StarCraft. TVT is such a difficult matchup. In general, I think the mirror matchups in StarCraft 2 are just so hard. Just because the margin for error is even smaller than in the other matchups, right? At least if you have a Terran versus Zerg or something, if you lose a bunch of your early game Marines, you can still fall back to your siege tank lines, but in TVT, you don't necessarily have that same level of luxury. Either way, beautiful series. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button down below, and I hope to see you again in the next one.